Many faculty members are unhappy in academia. They're saddled with service responsibilities. Their colleagues are prickly and they have to see them regularly. They're not getting to do the research that they'd imagined they'd get to do as a faculty member. And so in this instance where they're not happy, they may dream about other opportunities. They may wonder, what could I do besides be a faculty member? And in their mind, there might be a little worry that being a faculty member is the only thing they're qualified for. Well, here's the good news. As a faculty member, there are plenty of other areas where you can deploy your skills and expertise. And in this video, you're going to hear about just one possible path you can take. I'm going to interview Dr. Paulina Cossette. She's a faculty member who's now running her own business as an academic editor. You're going to hear about her decision to leave academia, how she made the move into building her own business, and a little bit about what she does day to day now so that you can kick the tires on whether this type of opportunity interests you as well. Use her story as inspiration for what's possible for you as a faculty member, knowing that there are paths available to you should you choose to walk them. I hope that you take her journey, enjoy our conversation, and use it as inspiration for what's ahead in your career. Welcome, Paulina. Super excited to be speaking with you today.
Hi, Tori. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, well, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you in particular because so many PhDs don't recognize that they can start their own business right out of academia and that they can do so from a faculty level. And so I think your story is going to be really important for folks who are watching to be able to get a sense of what's possible. So I'm excited to talk with you more about your journey.
Me too. I think a lot of people in academia think the default alternative is industry, which is sort of this amorphous, unclear term. What exactly does that mean if you're not a natural scientist? And many people don't think about editing. So I love chatting with folks to explain what that involves.
Absolutely, right? Building the space of what's possible. Sometimes we expand it so broad that folks get overwhelmed, but I think today you'll give a good enough overview that folks actually get a sense of what this could be like. And I will say for folks who are watching this, who are thinking of leaving academia now, we've got all sorts of resources for you in the description. You can go and take Paulina's webinar. You can check out my quick start guide to exiting academia. And so you can leverage those resources to get started today. All right, so Paulina, tell the folks who are watching a little bit more about what you are working on now and how you got there.
So right now I am an academic editor. That means that I work primarily with faculty, also some graduate students, and I proofread or edit their research, right? Anything related to conference papers, journal articles, dissertations, books, even job market materials. And so that's what my primary gig is. But also about a month ago, I launched a course for faculty who would like to leave academia, and I'm training them how to do that and become editors too.
Wonderful, right? Actually giving a sense of that path. And so I'm curious, when you're doing this editing work for folks, are the graduate students and faculty members, are they your clients? Are they booking you? Or are you booking this with the department?
That's a great question. No, it's really mainly one-on-one. So I will, I have my website, I have a presence on social media, and faculty and grad students find me and they contact me and tell me about their project, and we work out the details. And so many of them use institutional funding. So if they have research funds, that will come from the department, but all of the interactions are between me and the individual client.
Well, and so as you're talking about that, I can guess there are some PhDs or faculty who are watching saying, hey, that sounds like business stuff, right? That sounds like marketing and sales and product and pricing. I imagine there's some of that in there, right?
There is a little bit, but you know, I used to be terrified at the idea of starting a business, right? That you think of like starting a restaurant or something that has these massive startup costs and huge risk involved. And when it comes to editing or coaching, it's totally different. And actually, I sort of took baby steps. I left academia in 2019 and I became a freelancer, which you're essentially contracting with an editing agency or a book publisher. And so that sounds a little bit less scary than being a business owner or an entrepreneur. And so that was my initial step, was essentially being a freelancer or a contractor. But as I realized I liked working one-on-one with individual clients, and that's my favorite thing to do, I sort of started to learn the marketing and the business. And even now, when I'm mainly based with private clients, it's not as difficult as you would think.
Yeah, well, and I can hear you sort of taking those steps, right? Okay, this is a little bit scary, but I'm going to step towards it. Okay, I'm realizing what I enjoy more. I'm going to step towards that. And so it sounds like you've really been in touch with where you feel strongest, where you feel you're adding the most value, and following that.
Yeah, I felt so lost when I first left academia. And, we moved our family across the country to Maine, which is where we have the rest of our family here. And I tried the non-academic job market. I tried applying to non-ac jobs, but there's not a lot around here. And I kept getting told I was overqualified and kept getting so frustrated with the rejections. And I thought, I could do this copy editing thing. I had just published a book and worked with a copy editor with the publisher. And I figured I'd give it a try and see what happened. And it all sort of took off from there. But it took me 4 years because there was no guidance out there. I have not been able to find any other resources that are specific to helping faculty transition into editing. And so I learned that not only do I love editing, but I also sort of miss teaching too. And so that's what I really like about this new role that I've taken on, is it lets me interact with people in a teaching capacity or a coaching capacity.
Yeah. Well, and I can hear that you enjoy the editing, you enjoy working with folks, you enjoy teaching, and you published a book. Sounds like you were a fairly successful academic. What fueled you choosing to leave academia?
Um, Sorry, I missed my internet went over a second there.
Oh,
Did
no.
you?
Okay. Sorry about that. What was into your choice? What went into your choice to leave academia?
So, I started teaching around 2012, 2013 as a visiting assistant professor, and I held a couple of different tenure track jobs. And no matter what school I was at, I had the same problems, conflicts with colleagues who were not supportive or who made life difficult, conflicts with students. I taught American politics, and so that was a very difficult situation. And a lot of students just were unkind, and that made things very difficult. And the usual stuff, the plagiarism, the academic dishonesty, and just the general overwork but being underpaid that I think so many people are dealing with and have been for a long time. And I had my son in 2018, and at that point I was working 7 days a week, and I realized I couldn't do it anymore. It was killing me. It was exhausting me. And so I knew that I didn't know what I was going to do. I was terrified to leave. I had so much anxiety over it, but I knew that I couldn't continue the way that I had been. And so that, combined with wanting to live closer to our family, eventually led me to go for it and to take the leap. And I've never regretted it for a second.
I was going to ask, right now that you're on the other side, anything you regret, anything you miss about academia?
No, I mean, like I said, doing the editing, it can be a very solitary job. But then I discovered this new coaching role, and there are many academic editors who work as coaches, helping faculty and grad students either to finish their dissertation or to publish more efficiently, to structure their writing. There's all kinds of people who do work like that. And so finding that I did miss teaching a little bit, I'm find it much more enjoyable doing this type of teaching rather than, working in academia.
Well, and it sounds like some of what you were teaching was, politics, so politicized. So I can imagine that's less in the editing space. What else? What else clicks for you more in the editing teaching relative to teaching undergrads?
I think, when I have conversations with faculty or people who, either they're thinking of leaving or they've just recently left, you see that fear in their eyes and that anxiety. And it reminds me so much of what I went through. And now that I'm 5 years on the other side of the situation, and I know that life gets so much better, I'm able to connect with them, to understand what they're going through, and to give them hope. And just, to meet with them, the group every week on Zoom, to talk about what's going on, to watch them make these huge breakthroughs, that is so incredibly rewarding to me. We were talking this week, we've been at it for about 4 weeks now because the course just launched July 1st. And there was a lot of hesitancy to draft a one-page resume, right? To try to think of yourself in this new identity as an editor instead of faculty. And in the last week or two, they've all made huge progress in pushing through these blocks, and they're submitting their resumes to editing agencies, and they're, putting themselves out there on LinkedIn, and all of this stuff that was very scary. They're doing it, and they're posting in our group saying, "Oh my gosh, I applied to these jobs and somebody hired me." And, it's just so exciting to watch people who have been unhappy for so long to now find joy again.
Well, and as you're saying that, I recognize elements of that I enjoy as well. And I think why so many of us are in this space of helping folks who are unhappy, who feel lost, anxious, stuck, and saying, hey, there's this other path out here where you can actually find more joy in your work. So I hear you there on the transformation. And so I hear you talking about this group that you're facilitating. Tell folks more about your day to day now in how you run your business. What's your typical day or typical week look like?
So I have two little kids. One is 6 and one is almost 3. So that's what drives my schedule. That's what determines everything that I do. But it works out really well because I have people contacting me for editing projects, and so I'm able to schedule them onto my calendar and know exactly what that aspect of my business looks like. That's quite seasonal because in the last few weeks, the end of the summer, we have faculty who are wrapping up research projects and wanting to submit papers. And so the last few weeks have been quite busy, as well as dissertation season when grad students are getting ready to graduate and defend. But for the most part, I book as many jobs as I can and have time and space for. And then I also am working on the course. And so we meet once a week on Zoom for an hour, and we sort of just check in and, work through any challenges that the students are having. And it's very flexible. Everybody says that academia is flexible, but being able to go to a dentist appointment in the middle of the day is not flexibility. That's everyone should be entitled to do that without worrying about it. And, a lot of academics are working 7 days a week like I was, and that's not flexibility. So the thing that I think I love most about my work now, especially as a parent, is that my kids can come first and I don't have to feel guilty about that.
Well, and I can hear so many things you're getting, right? You're getting that flexibility, genuine flexibility. You're getting meaning, both from your work and from the time you're spending with your kids. And I think those are things that academics typically like to think they have a monopoly on. Oh, we're flexible. We're doing the meaningful work, right? Or the intellectually challenging work. And it sounds like you're actually finding those things more readily in your work outside of academia. Am I misstating that, or does it feel that way to you?
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think just like many academics think that the only alternative is industry, they also think that the only alternative is a 9 to 5 job. And first, I have to say, 9 to 5 jobs are actually pretty nice because you're not working, you're limited to 40 hours a week. You're not working 80 hours a week. But that's really not the case, right? You aren't limited to 9 to 5. There are so many options out there, whether it's editing or coaching or any kind of entrepreneurship, especially. I mean, when you're your own boss, that's true flexibility.
Yeah. Hey, you're preaching to the choir here, right? Being your own boss, having flexibility. I enjoyed a lot. And I also relate to what you were saying about just the colleague dynamics and the projects and all those things and the sort of projects that don't feel great. There's so much more freedom when you're running your own thing to choose who you work with, to choose how many and what types of projects you take on. And so you have this designability that I think for folks who have to go to that department meeting once a week and sit with the colleagues they've been sitting with for the past 10 years, it's a very different feel.
Yeah, and I think, in academia, we're essentially trained to fit inside a box, to write a certain way so that we can get published, to teach our courses a certain way so that our students will give us good evaluations and our department chair will be happy. And when you leave, you realize how much of yourself you have given up and how much of your unique identity and personality you've changed to try to appease the academic gods, the people who hold your future in their hands. And uh, it's oppressive, right? It really crushes you. And when you can step out of that box and go to own your own business or to pursue whatever it is that you find that makes you happy, it really is a weight lifting off your chest and makes you feel free because you get to enjoy and be who you want to be again without constantly being criticized.
And so interesting. I had never thought of it with that metaphor, but it's so spot on. And as we were thinking about that, I think academia is one type of box. At least for me, corporate and 9 to 5 was another type of box, a little more roomy, right? You got a better salary, you got a little bit more space to navigate. There's more ways to go, but it is also a box in a way that when you're building your own business, it's box free, right? Maybe the floor is falling out from underneath you, and so you're flying without any structure, but the limitations are so many fewer limitations exist relative to any of those other jobs that have folks defining boxes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like we were saying, challenges with colleagues and all of that. When you work for yourself, of course, you want to make your clients happy. I mean, I would feel terrible if I returned a project and the client wasn't happy. I would do anything to fix it and make sure that they were satisfied with my work. But that's reasonable, and trying to go every day to a job where you have to put up with abuse and mistreatment, that's unacceptable. And I think that's become too widespread in academia and possibly some corporate jobs too. But you don't have to put up with that kind of behavior when you own your own business.
Yeah, well, and there's something about, completing, say, an editing project or even a coaching engagement where the product is the thing you're thinking about, right? Like, did I deliver a good product? Did I deliver a good document? Did I deliver a good client experience? It's less about the person. Where in academia, sometimes it becomes very personal and we interchange our own identity so much with the work that when criticisms are coming, they're about the people. And these faculty members have these beef with each other as people. And so it's really hard to separate your identity from the work in a way that even doing this very individual work, it's sometimes easier to just view the product and deliver a good product and client experience with the product, right? There's people involved, but it's not as personal.
Yeah, and so when you're putting yourself out there with your website and your social media and all that, it's up to the clients to decide whether or not they resonate with you or you resonate with them. And so it's almost like the people who contact you are already predisposed to like you and to enjoy working with you, because if they didn't like what you stand for or how you talk or whatever, they wouldn't contact you to begin with.
So we've talked about where you were, right? Academia and choices to leave that, where you've come now. Anything else we've missed that you want to share with folks who are watching?
I I get the question a lot, is there really enough work out there for me to make a career out of this? You know, can it be more than a side gig? Well, yes, absolutely, because I and many other editors are doing it. I think another of the most common things that I hear from faculty who know they're unhappy, they want to leave, but they're just so scared to take that leap, is they feel like they're only cut out to work in academia. You know, not only do they believe these inaccuracies that the alternatives are industry and 9 to 5, but they also just feel this sense that they are not skilled enough, or they don't have the right skills or talents to do something other than teach. And I think as more and more of us work with coaches like you and others to find our true calling, we are realizing that we have so many skills and we are so intelligent and we are so hardworking. I mean, we if we weren't all of those things, we wouldn't have finished the dissertation or gotten the academic job to begin with. And so I think the big message that I want people to take in is that you are talented and you are skilled and you have so much to give the world. And so don't waste that in a job where you're unhappy. If you're unhappy, life is too short. Go out there and do whatever it is. Find whatever it is that will bring you joy.
Oh, what a wonderful statement right there. That like you have so much to give. Don't waste that in a job where you're unhappy. That could be a rallying cry for us all. Well, Paulina, it's been wonderful getting to connect with you today and hear a little bit about your story, your insights and expertise. As I mentioned up top, folks, if you are interested in academic editing, Paulina's got a webinar that you should check out. We're going to link that in the description. You can check out resources that we have to exit academia, right? If it sounds like Paulina's got some for faculty, I've got a quick start guide that I'll include in the description. So please follow and leverage those resources as you'd like. Follow our journeys if you'd like, if that's helpful for you. Anything else I missed there, Paulina, before we close?
No, I think that's it. It's been great talking with you, and I hope that this conversation gives folks the courage to step out of that box.
Yes, the courage to step out of the box. All right, well, take that courage today, folks. Step out of the box. Excited for what's ahead for each and every one of you in your careers.